I want to read to you the story of Peter. This is just after Jesus was arrested, just before he was crucified. Luke chapter 22. After they arrested Jesus, they led him away and brought him to the high priest's house. Peter followed from a distance. When they lit a fire in the middle of the courtyard and sat down together, Peter sat among them. Then a servant woman saw him sitting in the firelight. She stared at him and said, "This man was with him too." But Peter denied it, saying, "Woman, I don't know him." A little while later, someone else saw him and said, "You are one of them too." But Peter said, "Man, I'm not." An hour or so later, someone else insisted, "This man must have been with him, because he is a Galilean too." Peter responded, "Man, I don't know what you're talking about." At that very moment, while he was still speaking, a rooster crowed. The Lord turned and looked straight at Peter, and Peter remembered the Lord's words, "Before a rooster crows today, you will deny me 3 times." And Peter went out and cried uncontrollably. Thank you, band, for being with us all morning. It is great to have you here. And thank God for roosters, because the roosters in our lives have a way of exposing and getting us to face our shadow side. Now, you might think of our shadow side as our inner demons. And facing our inner demons is tough. It's tough work. Because when we face our inner demons, we're facing the secrets and the sins and the crippling fears and the regrets and all of the things that hold us back. It's a hard journey to go on. But what better time to go on this journey than the season of Lent? And here's the thing about our inner demons. Our inner demons beg us to stay silent. And when you stay silent, you might feel disconnected and out of sorts. It's like the psalmist says, "When I kept silent, my bones wasted away." And maybe you've had times in your life where you stayed silent in the face of your inner demons, and you could feel the most meaningful parts of you wasting away. So, during the last year, I've led 4 different storyline groups. And in fact, here at St. Luke's, we've had over the course of the year over a dozen of these storyline groups. And on the second week, something profound happens. Because on the second week, we are sharing together our stories, our positive and negative turns. And I've seen this happen in my groups, and my leaders say the same things in their groups. This always happens. There are always, in every group, 1 or 2 people who start like this. "What I'm about to share with you, I've never told anyone." And then they go on in their story, and it's usually incredible. And there's usually lots of tears. And one author reminds us that tears are a good thing because they have a way of watering the ground at our feet so that new things can grow. And there's usually lots of laughter because there's just something good and healing about laughing through our stories. And at the end of the evening, I always try to talk to the ones who have shared like this, and I ask them, "Man, what did this feel like for you?" This was a big step, a scary step. And almost all of them say the same thing. "Man, I didn't sleep last night. I was scared. I didn't know if I should go through with this." But then, almost all of them say, "But I feel lighter, and I feel free." That's kind of cool, actually. We didn't plan that, but that's kind of cool. You see, in the Christian tradition, we might refer to this as confession. And I get it. For so many of us, this word confession is tied in with all sorts of negative connotations about who God is and what God is about. That when it comes to confession, we have this God who is just obsessed with judgment and condemnation. And that when you confess this thing or the person you've become or the thing that has happened to you, this God can't wait to crush you like a bug, to let you know who's really in control. But what if we started looking at confession not as judgment and condemnation, but as liberation and freedom? That we begin looking at it as a naming of the darkness and the pain so that we can start to strip the power it has over us. And maybe some of you here today need to begin naming the darkness and the pain in your life so that you can begin stripping it of the power it has over you. So we go on a journey of denial, grace, and freedom. And this would be a good time to introduce to you our artist this morning. We have Stephanie Maher here on this side. Yeah, you can give us a wave. Kind of. There you go. She is painting and creating something on the theme of denial. And then we have Jordan Fickling painting and creating something on the theme of grace. And Avery Hill creating something on the theme of freedom. So, denial. We live in denial when we live compartmentalized and split lives, don't we? And usually when we live in denial, we live apart from the things that God is doing all around us. And denial, it's this tricky thing because like confession, it's wrapped up with all these messy categories like fear and shame and guilt and confusion. Did you know to be a United Methodist pastor, early in your ordination process, you have to submit a medical examination form to your DCOM, your District Committee on Ordained Ministry? So I went to the doctor early in my ordination process. He did his thing. He leaves, and he comes back, and he sits. And I can tell by his demeanor and his tone that all of a sudden things have gotten a bit more serious. And he's holding this notepad, and he starts asking me this series of questions. You're in your mid-20s, right? Mm-hmm. And you're married, right? Yeah, I'm married. And do you want to have kids? Well, yeah, actually, my wife and I have just been talking about that. We hope to in the near future. And he's pointing to this number. And I know exactly what this number is, because some numbers will never leave you. It was 234. It was my weight. I had just gotten off the scales. And then he starts making these other connections, and he points to this word obesity and says, you are in the obesity category, and you are too young for this. At some point, the health concerns are going to catch up with you. We don't know when, and we don't know how they will display themselves, but they will catch up. And he leaves. He says a few other things. I don't really know what he said. And he leaves his office, and I'm angry. He comes back. He hands me my medical examination form that I have to submit to my DCOM. And I leave the office, and as I'm leaving, I open this form, and I read it. And I become more angry. Because at the bottom of this form, there's this word that says suggestions. And then there are 3 blank lines. And you might expect these blank lines to remain blank, or maybe something like, good luck on the journey, have a good week, see you next time. No, not my doctor. I'm not kidding you. He, in big, bold, uppercase letters that took all 3 lines, he wrote 2 words. Lose weight. Exclamation point. I wish you could have heard the conversation I had with myself on the way home in my car. You don't know me. You don't know me. You don't know my backstory. And besides, Doc, I'm just a bigger type guy, just bigger bones, muscular. I got a football player-like body. Keep in mind, I have never played a day of football in my life. And you see, it goes beyond the facts. The facts are easy to deal with. But denial has to do with those messy categories of fear, shame, guilt, confusion. How did I get here? And if people know, if people find out all of the backstories, will they still like me? Will they still want me? And it was embarrassing. I didn't want to go home. I knew Tammy was going to be home when I got there. How'd it go, honey? Oh, you know me, says I'm strong as an ox. Just keep doing my thing. The rooster was crowing. And the rooster crowed again. It just took me another 2 years before I heard it again. And another 17 pounds. And I got up to 251. And the rooster started crowing through this little old elderly woman in the church where I was interning. And she had some hard words for me. But she had some words of love and grace. But you see, the thing about denial is it makes you hear things that aren't really there. Because you see, as I look back at this experience, I actually believe the doctor was for me. The doctor had my best interest at heart. He had my wife's best interest at heart. He had my future children's best interest at heart. But I didn't hear any of that. You know what I heard? He never said it, but I heard. Go home, fat boy. You're not worth it. And I know how much this hurts. Because growing up as kids, my brother was the chubby one. And he was always bigger than me. And when he picked on me, he could always win physically. And so I learned very quickly to fight back with my words. And I knew how to cut him to the core. When people would come around, especially his friends. Hey, fat boy. What are you going to eat today, fat boy? And I knew it hurt him. Because when we got older, later in life, he told me that these words stung. And every time I said them, they stung more. And they stuck with him. You see, denial, prolonged denial, is this deep, dark, destructive energy. And grace wants to save us from this. Grace wants to save us from our shadow side, the place where all of our fears and insecurities reside. Grace wants to save us. And sometimes grace is just so clear. And sometimes grace becomes more clear when you are at your very bottom, doesn't it? Think back to Peter with me for just a moment. Peter, hours before Jesus, his rabbi, the one whom he looks up to, the one whom he wants to be like, the one whom he honors and respects, hours before he denies him, he's sitting at a dinner table with him and the other disciples. And the conversation is coming to a close, but Peter closes it out for good. And Peter begins getting a little too boastful about how good of a disciple he is. And he says things like, Jesus, here's what you need to know about me. No matter where you go, I will be there. If you go to prison, I will go with you. And if you walk the way of your death, I will be there too. No matter where you go, I will be there. Hours later, Jesus is arrested, sitting in the house of the chief priest. Peter follows behind, but he stays outside by the fire. 3 different times. Who? Jesus who? No, I don't know him. Who? Oh, me? You think I was with it? No, I wasn't with him. I don't have a clue who you're talking about. The rooster crows. Jesus locks eyes with Peter, and Peter begins to weep. And remember, tears can be a very good thing because they have the potential to water the ground at our feet to cause new things to grow. But what happens afterwards? you see, the story just stops. We're not told. Did Peter, did he feel guilty? Did he make things right? Was he contrite? What happens? Luckily for us, Luke's gospel picks up Peter one more time, and it's with one verse. And I'm hesitant to do this because we got to step out of Lent for just a moment and step into Easter. And I realize it's still Lent, but I'm just going to put one little toe in Easter for just a moment. Chapter 24. So Jesus was crucified, 3 days later resurrected. In Luke's gospel, who discovers the empty tomb? The women. The women come back with a word of the empty tomb. 24, verse 11. Their word struck the apostles, the disciples, as nonsense, and they didn't believe the women. Verse 12. But Peter ran to the tomb, and he bent over to look inside. After his denial, after that bottom, Peter was the first one to run to new life. What happened between that rooster crowing and locking eyes with Jesus and weeping all the way to the resurrection? The truth is, we don't know. The text doesn't tell us. So we can only speculate. And my best guess is Peter experienced a God of grace that he never knew existed. Peter experienced the things that his rabbi Jesus taught about and spoke about. Peter experienced the kind of grace that opens you up at the exact moment everything within you wants to close. Peter experienced the kind of grace that opens you up to God, creation, the universe, and healing in brand new ways. Have you experienced this kind of grace? Have you experienced the kind of grace that opens you up at the exact moment everything within you wants to close? Have you heard the rooster crowing in your life that leads to this kind of grace? I have. And I'll never forget the moment. It was an early January morning. And by early, I mean 5:30 in the morning, an hour that I am usually not awake. And you could say that it was my bottom. And I was sitting on the couch in my living room. And my wife, Tammy, came down the stairs. And she was crying. And I hate to see my wife cry tears of pain and disappointment. And she said, "What are we going to do? What are we going to do?" And in that moment, everything inside of me wanted to close. Ryan, you don't have to go there. Ryan, you just keep being strong and keep doing your thing. But grace also has a way of opening you up at the exact moment everything within you wants to close. And you know what she didn't say? Man, you piece of trash. You loser. You've got to get your stuff together. You've got to pull yourself up. Enough is enough. When I married you, I didn't sign up for this crap. And something tells me Jesus didn't say that to Peter either. Oh, and he could have, right? Man, you loser. You sat at the dinner table with me and the other disciples, and you said you would be there. You bragged how you would follow me. And when I was walking to my death, you weren't there. In fact, you denied even knowing me. Something tells me Peter heard words of grace, experienced the God of grace, and in that moment, grace also lets you hear the things that are actually there. And I heard exactly what my wife, Tammy, was saying to me. What are we going to do? I am for you. We are in this together. You aren't alone in this. And every time the rooster crows, do we hear God saying the same thing to us? We are in this together. I am for you. You are not in this alone. Have you experienced this kind of grace? Have you experienced the kind of grace that can open you up at the exact moment everything within you wants to close? Thank God for roosters, because they lead us to this kind of grace. The grace that causes us to run to new life, to run to an empty tomb. Thank God for roosters that expose our shadow sides of denial, because when they're exposed and when we face them, we encounter this kind of grace, and this kind of grace leads to the best kind of freedom. Are you with me? And now I want to invite up my friend, Patrick Griggs. Patrick is going to share a piece of his story with us this morning. Patrick's a recovering alcoholic. He's going to speak about recovery and the themes of denial, grace, and freedom. Patrick has also written a song, and it's a beautiful song, and he's going to share it with us too. Thank you for joining us, Patrick.
Thanks, brother.
It's all yours.
I'm Patrick, and I'm an alcoholic. And I usually say that in the group downstairs. So I'm feeling a little vulnerable, a little nervous about this. So my rooster came in the form of my wife, Roberta. And it was July 24th, 2002, when I had my last drink. And so I started smoking pot a lot in high school, and it was Boulder High, so you know. And yeah, and it wasn't legal back then either, but we didn't care. So, and I started drinking heavily in college. And I noticed after college, a lot of my friends started like getting real jobs, getting married, getting it together. But I kept drinking like that. So what I did is I found new friends that drank and partied like me, and then it felt normal. It felt like that's what we just did. So then I got a job at Club Med, where they encourage you to party. And they pay you to be with the guests and have a good time. But me, I did a little too much. So they fired me because I partied a little too much. And so then I came back here, and I got a job over at the Country Dinner Playhouse, where I was a waiter. And one New Year's Eve, they had free champagne. And so I thought that meant free for me, too. So it was like one for you and 2 or 3 for me. And so they found me passed out somewhere. And they were going to fire me, but one of the guys that worked there, his dad was an AA guy. And so they said, if you go to this guy, Jack, and do the steps with him, then we won't fire you. So I did that, and that worked for a while. And I got married and had kids. And then somewhere around there in 2002, well, before that, I convinced my wife that I wasn't really an alcoholic. And she went for it, the poor woman. She didn't know any better. So I was able to lie to her, basically. And we had this thing where I was just going to drink 2 beers a week. But she didn't know that I was drinking all in between. That was just what she saw. So I made a big deal about how I'm just having 2 beers when I had this whole other life I was leading. And I would just cover it up in front of her. And so on July 24th, 2002, she was in this play at the Littleton Town Hall where she played a nun. And I was home alone with the kids, who were 2 and 5 at the time. And she came home, and I wasn't supposed to be drinking at all at that time. I came home, and there I was, passed out. The kids, they were fine, but, they weren't really kept after. And she could tell, and she was furious. And she knew that I must have some beer out in the shed, because I was always out in the shed. Like, I always found an excuse to go out to the shed, to get a tool or something. And so she grabbed a flashlight, because we don't have power out there, and she went out to the shed, and I followed behind her, like, oh, we don't need to go in there. There's nothing in there. Let's just go back in. Come on, you know. And she found my beer, and I always picture her still wearing her full nun's outfit because it has more of an impact for me. She said she had changed, but she was wearing this nun's outfit, and she took the flashlight and chucked it up my head and said, "You get back to AA or me and the kids are gone." So at that moment, I saw the light. So I went to AA. The next morning, I went to this morning meeting, and I found a guy that talked about raising his kids sober, and I latched onto him, and we did the steps, and I've done them several times since then. And, you know, I've replaced my life. Ryan talked about being whole. My life was fractured before. It was. I led a whole other life, you know, and I devoted so much of my energy into covering up my drinking and smoking pot. And now I could just, you know, I didn't have to do that. It was freedom. It was a real freedom. And now, you know, I've always had anger issues, and I have a way to work through that now. You know, I have the steps. I have recovery. I have a spirituality. I have a connection with God that I never, you know, I'm working on that. I'm working on it at the church. You know, I've talked to Janet. I grew up Catholic with a Jewish grandma. So to me, I had guilt in stereo. That's what that was. So, you know, church is like, I didn't quite get it. But in AA, they said, just, you know, come up with your own version of God. It doesn't matter as long as it's not you. Because I realized my problem, selfishness and self-centered, that was the core of my problem. My own ego to say, you know, you don't need this. You're cool. Don't worry about that, you know. Until I was broken, until I reached my bottom, you know, I could find a way. And you know, that's my experience from most people I meet in AA. They don't just come skipping in there like, hey, let's do recovery. You know, it's more like something happens, and then thank God it did. So here's a little song about it. I was sick of being sick. When I woke up alone, I saw the light. I was drunk in a deep dark funk. In the pit of hell, I saw the light. I made my children cry. I watched my life go by, and I was desperate and drunk and all alone. My denial was on trial. Then grace took its place. Oh, and freedom, sweet freedom, when I saw the light. Now there's hope, a way to go. One day at a time, I'll find the light. Make amends, make new friends, and surrender to the light. I'll get down on my knees and pray for honesty, 'cause I'm a liar, a cheat, and a drunk. My denial was on trial, and grace set me free. Oh, and freedom.
Have you all seen these paintings up here? Beautiful, beautiful work. When I asked them to paint this Sunday, I wasn't expecting this. I should have. Great, great work. These paintings will also be for auction right after this service, and the money we raise from these paintings will go towards our Africa trip in May. A team of us are going to Africa to bring the storyline ideas to Rusinga Island, Kenya. So if you're interested in these paintings, see Marilyn. She's in the front row here. Have you experienced this kind of grace? The kind of grace that opens you up to God, the universe, creation, and healing in brand new ways. Amen.
I'll get down on my knees and pray for honesty, 'cause I'm a liar, a cheat, and a drunk.